And our job, both personally, but as healers and doctors, people helping others on the path, is not to put any diamonds inside anybody, but to help people with techniques, be it yoga, be it breath work, be it a supplement, a conversation, a therapeutic methodology that helps them dust the dust off of this box.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's show, we give you an expert that allows you to tap into your glow. That's right, your glow. It's the authentic vibration of who you are. If you've been a listener and follower of this podcast, you really start to see not only the science, but the spiritual aspects of health and performance, how we are deeply connected to something that is greater. And as we tap into that infinite source and feeling connected and knowing that we are loved, connected, and safe, we access parts of ourselves that not only give us optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, but access the part of ourselves that we know is connected with everything else, know that we're here to serve everything else, and that allows us to radiate as who we are as well. More on that with our special guest today, New York Times bestselling author. But before we get into that, I wanted to just thank all the loyal listeners of the Thrive State Podcast. You've really allowed the show to grow. So please continue to engage with our content. Leave a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard, because it's going to allow the show to expand and to grow even more. If you haven't already, please consider picking up a copy of my book, Thrive State. The second edition launched earlier this year. It was a #1 bestseller on Amazon in the second edition. There is expanded content about the things in our life that tend to stop us. What is it? What's the biological mechanism for why we get stopped? And what are some practical tools to keep you from getting in that state? We also talk about how our energy, how we show up in the world makes a big difference in our teams, our organizations, humanity as a whole, because we're all energetic beings and our energy gets transferred. And when we learn how to cultivate this energy, learn how to be in this place of the Thrive State, we can affect the environments around us. All this in the second edition of my book, which you can get your copy at thrivestatebook.com. Now, our guest today is the New York Times bestselling author of the book, Healthy, Happy, Sexy, Ayurveda Wisdom for Modern Women. She actually holds a master's degree in Hinduism and the Ayurveda space. She is an internationally recognized teacher, mentor to women, and inspirer of hearts and minds. Now, just because she is a mentor to women does not mean today's podcast is only for women. I find it truly inspiring that human beings share a very common story of how we potentially forget who we are, that we are energetically loved, connected, and safe at birth, that we have this natural vibration of who we are. But over time, potentially through traumas, we get these little things attached to us, armor attached to this heart that is naturally, authentically vibrating at its own frequency, but it gets lost through life. And how remembering who we are, starting to remove some of those armor pieces, leads us back to this authentic love vibration. This is what she calls glow-worthy in her new book. Now, Katie is actually renowned for her depth of study, her ability to present complexities of ancient wisdom in a practical, life-affirming manner, as well as her unique capacity to distill the teachings with Southern Belle humor and grace. She's incorporated her signature style with over 20 years of tantric philosophy, Ayurvedic medicine, embodied meditation, sound, breathwork, holistic biomechanics, and energy-based trauma release methods. Her newest book is Glow-Worthy, which you can all pre-order now. Practices for awakening your inner light and loving yourself as you are. Broken, Beautiful, and Sacred. It comes out October 3rd, but I urge you to pre-order your copy now because you get tons of additional bonuses. Her powerful framework combines modern science and wisdom with global spiritual traditions that actually will help you live a fuller, more soulful life, no matter your background or your faith. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this heart-opening conversation and a very entertaining 5 to Thrive session with our guest, New York Times bestselling author, Katie Silcox. Katie Silcox, welcome to the Thrive State podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I could only imagine what the book you are written is going to be like, and I'd love to talk about Glow. But before we do, there is a very special segment on the show. My audience knows it well. It's called the 5 to Thrive. 5 quick questions, game show style, 1,000 points each to get to know you a little bit better. And if you win this, you win a healthy meal on me if we ever meet in person next. So is that a deal?
Sounds great. I hope I win.
Here we go. The 5 to Thrive. Question number 1 from the random generator is, if you could have any superpower for a day, what would it be and why?
Oh man, I'm such a deep person that I'm having like so many answers coming. But if I had one superpower that I could have, did you say for one day?
Yeah.
The ability to stop the cogitating mind.
Oh, wow. That would be a superpower. I mean, that's really us in our truest sense and form. 1,000 points for there. Question number 2 is, the next thing is, what is the most unusual or interesting talent you have?
Oh, I can play a little tiny mouth trumpet.
Oh, we might need to. Yeah, we'll love to see it now. Here we go.
By the way, this is already my favorite podcast ever. Okay. Girl, 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 girl. I never thought I'd be doing that.
That's that's more than 2,000 points already. I think you've already won with that one, but we'll keep going. Question number 3 is, what is the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you in public?
Oh, besides just playing my mouth trumpet on your podcast? Geez, you're killing me with these. These are very, very, I'm in my vulnerability. I mean, this is genuinely the true answer is I ran track when I was in high school and I was winning and running just so unbelievably fast that sometimes you lose your functions down there. And I ended the track meet. I won, but let's just say that I was a little sweatier than the rest of the girls. And so for the rest of the year, my senior year in high school, they called me Diapers Silcox.
Wow. Well, you won them, and potentially, the team should probably, take that on as the track outfit for the following year. I mean, it leads to champions, right?
Oh my God.
All right. Well, that's wow. You were really winning today.
I'm trying really hard to win.
Question number 4 is, what is your favorite childhood memory other than that one?
Other than that one's definitely not that one. That one's really easy. I was taking a walk the other day and I decided to leave all the devices. It's like a practice, right? To just walk around without your device. And I had my little dog pulled me over towards this tree and underneath the tree, there was this magnolia bloom and on it said Helen was here. Someone had written it in there with their fingernail. It's like the strangest coincidence because one of the aunties that raised me when I was a little girl, her name was Helen. And my favorite memory is, I'm from the deep South and I remember being on their riding lawnmower with Mr. and Miss Lily and the little dog Freckles and just being in a deep state of feeling like I was really loved and taken care of by these people that weren't even my relatives. Definitely the most positive, one of the most sweet memories.
Oh yeah. I just imagine in the world today, it's very difficult to feel that sense of love and safety from strangers, and be able to get that. I bet is very, very special. Last question for all the marbles for the meal on me is, if you could invent a holiday, what would it be called, and how would you celebrate it?
Oh my gosh. So I'm just going to say what's coming to my brain.
Yeah.
My girlfriend and I were laughing the other day because she wrote a really cool book. And I said, you know, the real title of your book is just, the real title is Shut the Fuck Up. So I don't know if I can curse, you can beat me out, but just just shut the F up day. Like if we just had a day of ritualized silence, I think that would be a new best holiday.
Oh wow, it sounds great. What time of the year would that be?
You can choose for all the remaining points.
It'll be the first Tuesday of every November 4 year cycles starting next year.
Okay, we're on it.
Well, 5,000 points. What fun answers. I can't wait to dive more into your story. A lot of people that end up being in the personal development space and doing a lot of this deep spiritual work has, their story of awakening. And so tell us a little bit about who Katie was before this transformative work and the events leading up to this awakening process.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I agree with you 100%. And I feel definitely like I'm still not arrived. I call myself like a half-baked bun in the oven. Like I'm still very much on that quest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mentioned I grew up in the deep South. I was raised Southern Baptist. I went to church 3 times a week, fire and brimstone, and also like all the beauty and love of Christianity, and always had a deep sense of being a very sensitive creature, and feeling very deeply, being very intuitive, all of these sort of things we would think of as feminine qualities in all of us. And I actually got a job out of college with an artificial intelligence firm, which is
Mm.
now kind of all the buzzword, but back then it was really new. And I was working with a lot of we were some of the first to do the predictive technology for the stock market. And they hired me, as they called me, my nickname was the sacrificial virgin. And I was helping teach, because I wasn't a computer person, not a tech person at all. I studied language and anthropology and sociology and psychology. And they asked me to help these guys from MIT um, teach the computers how to feel human feelings. And
Wow.
they weren't doing a very good job at it. And I, through life circumstance, met these guys. Anyway, worked for them for 7 years. And a beautiful experience. I learned a lot. It got me very interested in Buddhism because of this technology platform. But one of the things I realized is, as I was meeting a lot of the wealthy and powerful of the world that I was suddenly privy to, because that certainly was not my background, I
Mm.
noticed that they didn't seem super happy, and they had a lot of addictions. And I included myself in that. It wasn't like, oh, I was better than anyone. It was just that I was like, this doesn't seem to be working for them. This thing of power and privilege and money and fortune and fame, which aren't necessarily bad in and of themselves. I could see that for me, it wasn't going to be enough. And so I was offered a big promotion and a lot of money. And I went home and cried and quit the next day. And I had already gotten interested in meditation and yoga and Ayurveda, and I moved to India just
Mm.
just like that. And that's a whole other story, but that really got me interested in wanting to really search for who I am beyond the suffering that we all experience.
Oh, certainly. It's the beautiful human experience and journey that is the suffering as we forget who we are, as we move through the path of, other people telling us how we should be, and the beautiful remembrance of this thing that we could tap back into, that we are actually loved, safe, and connected. Um, Tell us about the word glow-worthy. What do you
Mm.
mean by that?
Well, I'm figuring it out too. The real, I shouldn't say the real, the original title of this book
Mm.
was not glow worthy, which I love, but it was holy. And I want to mention that because that word is really the essence of glow worthy. It means that this is revolutionary if we really did practice it, because I was certainly not raised this way, and I think most people weren't. I was raised to understand that there's definitely a good and a bad, and you are either in one camp or the other. There's the us versus them. The polarization was a big part of my upbringing around my
Mm.
goodness, my worthiness. And when I started to really look into these ancient disciplines, including the Judeo-Christian traditions, I found that there was this word holy that actually means to be whole and complete unto oneself, where one can actually hold all aspects of oneself, light and dark. And that if we were to enter into a state of what, of course, in the Asian traditions we call enlightenment, it would not be because we suddenly became good, but that we were able to admit that we contain, as Carl Jung said, multitudes. And so this book for me was really a journey about, my God, the deep work of learning to love the parts of you that you find the most horrific and abhorrent and annoying, and that by doing that and staying open to those parts of our experience, that's when something really magical and alchemical can start to happen, as you know, as a doctor, both on a physiological level, but also on these other more subtle emotional and even relational levels of who we are. I'm a very type A person. I want to get it right. I want to figure out the solution. I want to fix what's wrong. And that attitude, while can be helpful in some situations, actually creates a state of inner tension where the resistance builds up more and more and more. And we actually paradoxically get less of what we actually want, which is,
Mm.
as you said, ease, love, connection, belonging. All those things, if we're speaking on a relational level, have an origin point in my own willingness to stay open to the fact that you asked me 5 really deep questions just to start, where I had to be like, okay, I'm going to go for it. It's like riding a roller coaster. Let's do it. Staying open to the parts of me that even after so many years of being in the public eye, I get nervous before I talk. Opening my heart to that, opening to the embarrassment, and I could feel my cheeks getting red, and I start to be a shy girl, and opening to that, and like on and on and on. We keep opening to all these parts, and that's when something glowing starts to happen that has
Mm.
nothing to do with you, how you look, or even your inflammation level, right? It has to do with soul, and that, I hope, is what this book is about, and it's certainly what I hope the rest of my life can be about.
Mm. So beautiful. It sounds like a deep level of acceptance and love. Um, let's talk a little bit about, you know, the practices.
Sure.
What does that look like, on a day-to-day basis? Are there routines built in? What are the practices to be able to step into that state that you talk about? This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by the Thrive State Accelerator. The Thrive State Accelerator is actually a home course that I developed using the exact same techniques I work with my celebrity clients, CEOs, and executives on how to get them to the Thrive State. The Thrive State Accelerator teaches you how to master your 7 bioenergetic elements. That's sleep, nutrition, movement, stress and emotional mastery, relationships, our thoughts and mindset, as well as purpose. In this Thrive State Accelerator, you're also going to get a bonus module on optimization. That's how I talk about supplementation, peptides, all the optimization techniques I use with my clients to get them to the Thrive State. Now, for some of you who are just joining us for the first time, you guys might be wondering, what is the Thrive State? Well, the Thrive State is actually the energy, the epigenetic environment we give to ourselves, telling our DNA how to act and how to respond. And if we want optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, if we can master these 7 bioenergetic elements, our ability to have those 3 things that we just said, optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, is at its greatest. And it also prevents you from getting chronic symptoms like brain fog, being overweight, feeling sluggish, acne, pain, all these chronic symptoms, as well as preventing you from getting chronic disease. So getting to that thrive state is really getting to that state to master being that very best version of yourself so you could show up for you, for your family, for your business, everything that's important to you. So go ahead, check it out right now at kienvuu.com/accelerator and use coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Now back to the podcast.
Well, I want to give a lot of love. I spent 20 years studying Tantra, which everyone gets super excited about because they're like, ooh, and I mean, traditional forms of Tantra where we work with energy, what we call prana, chi, energy, life force, the inner feminine. And really what that's saying is we use whatever it is that's in the field of our awareness, whatever it is that's happening in our life, we use that as the fodder for this bonfire of transformation. So that means on a day-to-day level, of course, I do my meditation practices, I do my breathwork practice, I do my exercise every single day. I have all of these daily life routines. I'm an Ayurvedic teacher. I teach thousands of women Ayurvedic medicine every year. And all of that is like rules, regulations, do this, know your body type, blah, 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 blah. And what Tantra says is, yeah, cool, do all of that. But there's also this whole other field called regular life where I have to interface with my employees and emails and social media and the post office guy. I mean, all of these sort of everyday life things, the root meaning of one of them, of the word Tantra, is to expand out of your limitations using the actual fabric of life so that every opportunity that we're in becomes this possibility for me to experience where I'm holding and harboring resistance, limiting beliefs, a lack of willingness to feel my experience. And I do it all the time. And the way that I know that I'm doing it, and we all do this, is I am running away from something. So I want to distract myself. I mean, it's really always that I'm trying to get off of the raw embodied experience of being in an emotional being body. And so my daily practice, I mean, beyond the, of course, quiet meditations, we could talk about a lot of the internal energy practices I have in the book, but really it's to pause throughout the day and just be radically honest. Like, okay, I'm feeling like this buzzing feeling in my belly. I'm feeling a little bit anxious. And what is that like in my body? And working with that from, and here's the secret, from a place of not wanting it to be different. Typically when we sit to meditate or do any spiritual practice, we do the technique. You and I are both in the realm of self-help, and that's okay. But a more subtle way of practicing it is, can I be with what's actually occurring without the expectation of it changing? And by doing that, this really sort of magical thing starts to happen. And that is, whatever block is there starts to resolve and dissolve, be it emotional, energetic, thought form, or, if you want to get really woo-woo, energetic, right? Our energy blocks that are upriver from the meat sack that we're all walking around in, trying very much to fix. And believe me, I'm one of those people. But kind of going upriver to see the origin point of the root cause is really what I'm interested in.
Love what you just said. Love to unpack that for people a little bit deeper, because we certainly know that, sometimes it is our resistance to what is causes them to persist. And then also trying to numb it out with something else tends to, lead to addictions and potential practices that'll allow us not to do that. Are you suggesting just sitting with it on its own allows it just to pass? Or when you are with that discomfort, what's happening, or what are your mental processes or physical processes during that time that allow, the smooth passing of these feelings?
It's a very deep question you're asking. Let's go to what our elders say, our ancient elders from pretty much every global tradition say that we have an internal masculine and feminine. It doesn't matter if it's man, woman, whatever, we all have it. Shiva, Shakti, masculine, feminine. So let's look at it from like a brain state perspective. You have a part of your brain that has the capacity to witness, silently witness things. You also have the somatic experience of our emotions, our image, our affect, our sensations, all of these things that are always changing. And our ancient foremothers and forefathers were very funny. And so they said, let's make that the woman. It makes sense. We are in a 4-week cycle pre-menopause where for those 4 weeks, biochemically, women are 4 different people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the moon is always changing. So they likened the woman to the moon, right? Like if you don't like that she's changing, just know that's what enables her to create, to have babies, to be feminine, to do these things. So, but men have it too, right? And so within us, we have this, you can think of it as this sort of stoic Shiva masculine sitting on the mountain in Himalaya, like looking out and having the silent witness consciousness. That would be like a stoic disposition. And you have that unending change, aka thinking mind, sensation of the body, emotional reality, and just the fact of our aging, despite all of the techniques I'm going to go read about on your website and get your book and follow you and learn. I want to live to be 105 as well as anyone, and I want to be juicy until the end, right? But internally, on a more subtle level, if we're able to find the part of us that can be that stoic silent witness and see that emotional reality without wanting that feminine part of any of us to be different or to shut up, or, you know, we desecrate the feminine. We say we don't want that annoying emotional mood change, that thought movement. We don't want that. But if we can actually let that be and allow whatever mood state or thought form to be with that silent witness without identifying with it, that's the tricky part. Because when we feel, look, I'm, like I said, a half-baked bun in the oven, but like when I feel sad, it's so easy for me to be like, I am the sadness. This is me. And we do something in brain state, we call it amplification. So I'm like, now I'm going to lay around and like eat some ice cream and watch something that's going to make me feel even more sad. And I'm going to call my girlfriend and talk about how sad I am. And I become immersed and merged into sadness. Right. So that would be like a typical thing that one could say the feminine has the tendency to do. On the other end of the spectrum is the dissociation, the denial of the feeling. I'm not sad. I'm great. I'm going to go on a jog and go to the gym. And I don't feel that. And no, 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 no. And that is another way of actually avoiding. So the secret is, can I experience this without becoming it and without trying to change it? And that is what the tantric path calls the razor edge path, because that is super hard, right? But that's what we're called to do.
That's amazing. And would you find that, you know, I would just imagine breath work and meditation really being complementary to these things. Now, for the people who are not, you know, say spiritual, religious, really kind of understanding this part a little bit more, like how do you explain this framework, this glow-worthy framework that you have to people? What exactly is the framework, and how are these practices, and how would you explain it to them in terms of what they will achieve from that?
Right. I'm of the Carl Jungian camp when it comes to spirituality and religion. He said, you know, I'm really just describing the anatomy of the psyche. And so that's really the way I approach spirituality. It's like you're looking at the liver and the spleen, and, you know, you're looking at the intestines, and whether we call it God or we call it spirit or whatever we call it, there's a part of the human psychology that will look for something bigger than itself. Right. So I always tell my students, you don't have to believe in God. You just have to believe that you're not the only one here. If you think you're the only one here, you know, you say you have a clinical issue, you're a total narcissist, like psychopath, right? Most people understand that there are others, and that sense of otherness allows the ego a proper nesting place, which I think you and I don't know your age, but probably we're similar. And there was something about our traditions that enabled our egos to be nested within the proper context that maybe for good reason got destroyed. And there's so many people walking around the world today that have a disconnected sense of soul because those nested eldership traditions of religion, who cares about the God piece? I mean, that was important, but what they did was they gave us a proper framework to exist in that enables us to feel safe and held by something bigger than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We have to find what that is, both from a collective perspective, but what I speak about in the book is to satiate the natural anatomy of our psyche, which longs to feel nested into something sacred.
Yeah.
You could call it nature, you could call it the divine, you could call it the part of your psychology that just has the capacity to experience unity. I think that's why so many people are doing psychedelics these days. You know, that's the new church. There are more people in Los Angeles going and doing ayahuasca journeys than going to mass.
Mm.
Right? And that, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It speaks to the longing of the human heart to know who we are beyond the egoic vision, because that the problem with that is we have a sense, whether we're an atheist or a religious person, we all have a sense that our death is imminent. So far, I think that's true. And so this book is a really a retranslation of what one could call Gnostic or yogic or tantric or ancient technology around finding a gateway into soul, so that when we do reach that last moment where we have our last inhale and exhale, we're just not as scared.
Mm. I feel that, and there's goosebumps all over. What an amazing journey or gift this human experience, and the remembering process of who we actually are is something that is deeply connected to something bigger, and the realization of that allows us, I would imagine in your mind, what causes us to be glow worthy, to be able to just shine as is.
The irony of this, and that's kind of how I start the book, is you're already that. You're
Yeah.
already worthy of glowing. You are glowing. The ancient yogis say you've got this diamond inside of your heart, and it's inside this glass box when you're born. And when you're a little boy or a little girl, somebody says something that hurts your feelings, or God forbid, you go through a rough or traumatic childhood, and little specks of dust just build up on this glass box that's holding this shining, luminous gem.
Yeah.
And our job, both personally, but as healers and doctors, people helping others on the path, is not to put any diamonds inside anybody, but to help people with techniques, be it yoga, be it breathwork, be it a supplement, a conversation, a therapeutic methodology that helps them dust the dust off of this box. Now, what the ancient yogis say is some of the experience of dust turns into tar. And you can't take a feather duster to that. You have to take fire. And so this really is a book about accessing your inner fire, accessing that light inside that can burn away the delusion of the past, because it's all well and good to talk about soul, but how hard is it to actually do it? And we can't do it with the thinking mind. That's a part of the journey, but not sufficient to fully access every level of who we are. And our culture teaches us to really glorify the left brain thinking. That is what artificial intelligence is. We're missing half the story. So the other half is the embodied experience of being energy. I know that's the woo-woo part, but it's only woo-woo because we weren't taught it, right? We were taught gym class, which is
Mm.
our physical body, we were taught, all of us had the pressure of learning how to excel in the mental body, get an A on a test. But most people weren't taught how to take their attention through their legs down into the ground. That's all
Mm.
it is. Working with energy, which the yogis called the gateway to soul, is energy. It's as easy as just learning how to focus inside the body. And so I know I'm being a little bit esoteric, but if you can learn how to focus your attention throughout your body, you can start to refine your awareness to be able to sense the difference between your physicality, your mental being, your mental body, and your energy body. You can start to feel that. And I've worked with literally truckers from West Virginia. I've worked with people, I'm from Tennessee. Like I'm talking, I'm not to throw off on those people, but I'm just saying I've worked with people who are mega celebrities. I've worked with CEOs of companies in San Francisco. Not just like woo-woo yoga girls with yoga tattoos, although of course those are my meat and potatoes of my life, but all those people, if given the proper technology, suddenly go, oh yeah, I can totally feel that. And that's what the ancients called the intuition. We have
Mm.
to be taught how to access the intuitive body. Otherwise, we get confused with it as being the mental body. So anyway, you and I could talk and talk for hours and hours.
Right. So I know there's tons that's packed in the book, but is there something that is tried and true, super simple that we can give away as a nugget for people to kind of really know the power of these exercises and create potentially an incentive to want to learn more? Is there a
Absolutely.
technique or an exercise that you think people can use to really start this practice of building awareness?
100%. I'm going to tell you a formula, and then if your listeners want, we will send them a meditation
Mm.
that will teach them how to work with their energy work 101. But here's the simple formula that we can leave people with right now, and that is energy follows loving attention. Anywhere you move your energy, be it through your physical body, be it to someone else out in the world, energy moves towards loving attention, focus. But, and here's the second part of the formula, energy can't flow through stress and tension.
Mm.
So energy will go where you focus, but you also have to cultivate. That's why all these Buddhists talk so much about compassion. You got to be chill. You got to be loving. You got to be open. You have to have no expectations, non-attachment. That's
Mm.
the formula. But yeah, I'd love to send your listeners a meditation. We'll figure out how to put that in your show notes and get people that.
Oh, beautiful. And I encourage everyone to listen. And certainly if you sat through and either listened or watched this podcast, you will see the transmission that is glow. And I'm pretty sure that the practices that she's going to share with us, thank you for the gift, will give us a little bit more access to that as well. Before I ask my last question, where do people find you and your work, and what date in October is Glowworthy coming out?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Glowworthy is she's really beautiful. She's coming out October 3rd, and they can also pre-order it now on our website. It's theshaktischool.com. And I'm on Instagram and all the places,
Oh, beautiful. Last question for you. For somebody who has gone through so many different type of trainings, um, new ideas, physical practices, mental practices, breathing practices, from either the concrete or the abstract, what has been your best medicine?
Hmm. Well, can I leave you with one line from the oldest spiritual text on the planet, the Vedas?
Oh, sure.
This line has helped me a lot. I have it on my mirror upstairs in the bathroom, and it says, silence cures all.
Mm.
So find somehow to find that quiet, silent place in your heart where that thinking mind can pause and check out what's there.
Mm. Beautiful. Katie Silcox, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for the transmission of who you are. Appreciate you for being on the Thrive State podcast.
Well, you've been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if this podcast is bringing a lot of value to you, if you find that your life is just improving with this podcast, that your life is getting to the next level, please consider supporting it. And here's a few ways you can do so. You can do so by liking this video and commenting on this video, and also sharing this video with your friends and family. Another thing you can do is go to ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review there. It will really, really help this show grow. And this will give me more time so that I could actually give more content to you, just like you got in this episode. And if you haven't already picked up a copy of my book, Thrive State, Your Blueprint for Optimal Health, Longevity, and Peak Performance, you can pick it up now. It became a #1 new release in longevity. Go to thrivestatebook.com. And if you enjoy the book, please consider leaving us a review as well. And the last thing you can do, if you're liking everything here and you want to work more closely with me as well as my team to get you into the Thrive State, go to kienvuu.com/accelerator and consider joining the home course, the Thrive State Accelerator. It's really the course that I use. It's the concepts that I use personally when I work with CEOs, celebrities, and my high-profile clients to get them to the Thrive State. Again, the Thrive State Accelerator at kienvuu.com/accelerator. And because you're a listener of this podcast, I want you to save 25% by using the coupon code podcast25. I hope we continue to give value to you. And remember always, you are your best medicine.